When my girlfriend went bankrupt, she ended up with a huge pile of debt. To help pay it off, she and I started taking on part-time jobs every evening after we finished our day jobs. By chance, I landed a rush delivery gig. When I got to the destination and handed over the documents, a guy opened the door. As he turned around, he yelled, "Tina, the urgent documents have arrived." I thought it was just someone with the same name. But the next second, I heard my girlfriend's voice coming from inside saying, "Great, get the delivery guy to pick up some more of these for us." Suddenly, an empty box of condoms hit the guy's feet. Tina went bankrupt. To help her clear the debts, I sold all the luxury things she gave me when we were dating, including a pricey watch and expensive antiques from auctions. I also used up all the savings I'd been building up for years. Even then, we were still $80,000 in debt. Now, after finishing our regular jobs, we both do part-time work every day. During the day, I'm a sales associate at a high-end clothing store, and she hands out flyers on the street. At night, I run deliveries and she drives for a ride-sharing app. Today, I got an assignment to pick up a document from a company for a boss. This client was generous and offered an extra $1,000 as a tip. The only catch was that the delivery needed to be super quick. I got the request while waiting at a food stand for a lady to make me a pancake. I was starving today and treated myself to a $12 deluxe pancake, which I rarely do. But once I saw the client's urgent note, I immediately hopped on my little e-bike and headed for the requested location. While waiting outside the company for the secretary to bring down the documents, I quickly texted Tina the good news. "Tina, I just made over $1,000 today. Remember how you said you wanted sweet and sour ribs? Let's buy some ribs tomorrow." But there was no reply. My message just seemed to vanish. I figured Tina must have picked up a passenger by then. She usually doesn't text back when driving because she wants to keep her passengers safe. Once she's free, she'll reply to my messages on Instagram, and it's something we've just come to understand about each other. I just update her whenever. She'll reply whenever she gets the time, always making me feel validated and appreciated. We've never complained about an unfair life. Even during the roughest patches, we just hold hands and watch the sunrise beyond the window, silently vowing to make lots of money. This delivery was kind of far, but thinking of the $1,000 tip, I was glad I snagged this job. When I arrived at the villa community, a security guard at the gate stopped me. He eyed my bike and spoke loudly. No outside vehicles allowed in the community. I was worried about the delivery running late, but got the hint from the guard's tone. Parking my bike by the roadside, I clutched the documents tightly and rushed into the villa area. When I reached the destination, another guy opened the door. He was wrapped in just a towel, with wet hair strands stuck by his temples, and there were fresh hickeys all over his neck. All clear signs of what went down in there. Standing on the steps, he crossed his arms over his chest, leaning against the doorframe, a fragrance of gardenias wafting from him. Seemed annoyed at being disturbed. He asked, "Who are you? What's up?" I handed over the documents. "Here's your delivery." He took the folder, browsed through it, and then seemed to understand. Flipping through the contents absent-mindedly, he said, "These are my girlfriend's documents." I reached for my phone to mark the delivery complete, but was interrupted by him yelling inside, "Tina, the documents you needed urgently are here." A voice quickly responded from inside. "Great, bring them in. They're important. I'll need them for a meeting after I shower." Hearing that voice left me completely frozen. It was so familiar that I could even picture the expression on the face of whoever was speaking. Before I could process it all, an empty box got tossed out. Tina's voice called out from inside again. "Oh, while you're at it, have the delivery guy grab more of these for us." The box rolled on the floor a few times before resting at the guy's feet. He picked it up, tossed it my way, and grinned. "Can you grab a few more of these for us? We need them quick. And hey, I'm allergic to silicone, make sure it's the hyaluronic acid ones. For that, I'll throw in another $2,000 tip when you're back." Standing there stiffly, I glanced down at the printed words on the box, feeling my throat tighten and breathing as if it was strangled. Tina arrived back at our rented place around 2:30 in the morning. I was sitting on the floor treating scrapes on my legs. Hearing the noise at the door, I didn't bother to look up. Tina seemed surprised to find me still awake so late. You're still up? Good timing, you were talking about wanting crawfish the other day, so I got 2 pounds. She dropped the bag of crawfish beside me. Noticing the wounds on my knees and arms, she looked a bit panicked. What happened? You're hurt? Calmly, I replied, just fell while delivering today. She fetched clean cotton swabs, sprayed some iodine solution on them, and started carefully cleaning my wounds. When she leaned closer, I caught the scent of her body wash, exactly the same as that guy's earlier. After a day running around with errands, not a trace of body odor lingered on her. Not even bothering to mask anything now. Was I that easy to fool? Or had she long stopped caring to keep up appearances? When leaving the villa area, a few costly-looking sports cars started tailing me. Inside were some rich girls playing a dangerous game of cutting me off. Almost like a source of fun for them, they only drove off laughing after I took a nasty spill. Naturally, their conversation hit my ears without missing a beat. What if Tina gets mad at us for this? You're overthinking it, aren't you? How could she be mad at us because of this guy? Who is Tina anyway? There's no way she'd like him. Plus, Mike's already back in the country, and Tina will cut ties with him sooner or later. Their car faded into the distance, but their voices were so loud, like there was a speaker right next to me. I heard every word. The sting on my knee brought me back to reality. I looked into Tina's eyes, trying to find some guilt or shame after deceiving someone. Tina tossed the swab into the trash. Apparently, I'd been too quiet tonight, and she looked up, puzzled. What's up with you tonight? Why aren't you talking? She leaned in, and that's when she noticed I was looking a little off. Her gaze landed on my face, and she seemed a bit flustered, so she gently patted my back. That's how she always comforts me. What's wrong? Did you get a hard time from someone you delivered to today? Or is it because I got home late tonight? The emotions I just managed to calm down started bubbling up again. She gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes. No? Then what is it? Tina couldn't figure out what was wrong, like an ant in a hot pan. I sniffed and forced a smile. It's nothing, just the disinfectant stinging the wound. She kept wiping my tears and frowned, half suspicious. Really? I nodded. When we ate crawfish together, I was about to give her a chance to confess. Tina, is there something you want to tell me? I held my breath, hoping to hear something from her, but she just shook her head. We're together every day, we've said all there is to say. Seeing she didn't have the slightest intention of confessing, I felt like I'd fallen into an ice cave. If I hadn't grabbed that delivery yesterday, how much longer would I have been left in the dark? In the end, I couldn't bring myself to voice the questions I'd been rehearsing all night. I had no idea how to start or how to question her. 3 years of being together, not a year, not a month, not a day. The next morning, Tina had breakfast ready. She grabbed the keys from the table and gave me a kiss on the cheek like usual. I'm off to work. I stopped her as she was heading out the door. Tina. She turned and looked at me. Do you have time tonight? I want to talk. She hesitated but nodded eventually. As the door clicked shut, silence filled the room again. That silence was like an invisible beast, eating away at the love I had for Tina. I knew she wouldn't be free tonight. Last night, while she was in the bathroom showering, I checked her phone. Tonight, it's the day for their upper-class circle's semi-annual gathering. Mike is hosting. She can't miss it. During the day, I worked as a sales rep at a high-end clothing store, earning a commission per sale. Today, I went to work as usual, but the manager suddenly reassigned me to another store. Barely had I changed into my uniform when a customer came in. Welcome. I greeted them with the smile I had practiced countless times, but it vanished when I recognized the person. I placed an order for some clothes and shoes here, and I came to pick them up today. The man in a dark brown custom suit walked up to me, slowly took off his sunglasses, revealing amber eyes, his stance both arrogant and impatient. Right, I'm Mike. This was the guy who opened the door when I delivered documents yesterday. Probably the same Mike those rich girls were talking about last night. A fellow sales rep pushed me aside with a flattering smile. Mr. Mike, right this way, please. Mike glanced at me, his expression showing something I couldn't quite understand. He pointed at me. I want him to assist me. The rest can help out with new customers in the front. After Mike went into the VIP area, the manager pulled me aside, looking a bit nervous. Don't upset that guy inside. Just do whatever he says, got it? Mike is a valued customer here, not to mention Miss Tina's fiancé, so be patient. Keep him happy, and you'll have no worries about your sales this month. Tina, really? It must have been hard for her to fake a deep love story with me for 3 years. She might have even been touched by her own small favors at the end, right? I took a deep breath. Manager, I really don't want to. The manager looked horrified as he cut me off. What do you mean you don't want to? Mike specifically asked for you to serve him. You're lucky for that. Others would love the chance. He pointed to the sales rep at the front. Some people are okay with losing their dignity and letting the rich step all over them. But I'm not one of them. Finding out Tina wasn't bankrupt drained all motivation out of me. All those promises felt like needles deflating my drive. Mike's impatient voice came from inside, causing my manager to panic like a scared dog. He lowered his voice. Are you stressed from work? How about this, make sure you satisfy him and I'll talk to higher-ups for a week off for you to relax. There definitely are things that need some time to sort through. I entered, finding Mike leaning back on a sofa, looking at magazines on a shelf. On the side table were elegant pastries and a perfectly decorated coffee that the manager had brought. Before leaving, the manager anxiously signaled, fearing I'd upset the golden customer before me. Mike took a sip of his coffee, then looked up at me. With a chuckle, he pointed to the custom leather boots before him. Help me put these on. I obeyed, kneeling to carefully sort out the shoe details. But Mike spoke again. I need you to do it kneeling? Didn't your manager tell you? I glanced up, seeing only disdain in Mike's eyes and a malicious grin on his face. Thinking back to what the manager said, I pushed down my emotions over and over. Sorry, I forgot. These shoes are a real piece of work, with such complicated detailing. Plus, Mike keeps finding ways to make it harder for me. I'm about to lose it, but my smile doesn't falter, not even a bit. When I slipped the shoes on, Mike's voice suddenly got serious. You hurt me. Before I could even react, Mike kicked me in the shoulder. He was strong. I fell backward uncontrollably, and my head slammed against the sharp edge of the coffee table. The dizziness and the pain were so intense, I couldn't even stand up straight. Mike seemed satisfied seeing me in pain. He remained smug, arms crossed, lounging on the couch. Do you know why I asked you here? Got any idea why Tina's with you? It's just a bet between her and her friends. They're betting on whether you'll be dumb enough to blow your hard-earned savings to bail her out. Did Tina tell you she went bankrupt? I didn't answer him. He paused, like he remembered something funny, then burst out laughing. Oh right, did you know that the moment Tina got your money, she transferred it all to me? Pathetic, isn't it? Just over 400 grand and it can't even buy me a watch, not even a tie. The bankruptcy thing was just her excuse to break up with you. But you wouldn't take a hint, insisting you'd help pay off her so-called debts. Isn't that just ridiculous? As he went on, Mike's tone shifted from smug to mocking, then angry. He picked up a cup of hot coffee, ready to throw it at me. But suddenly, the door to the VIP lounge was unlocked from the outside. Though he stopped himself, a bit of coffee still spilled. So, how are you liking the custom clothes and shoes? Tina's voice was sweet, until she saw me. Then she stopped cold. I never imagined a conversation with Tina would happen in such an awkward setting. The manager was right behind Tina. When he saw Mike's lingering anger, he immediately shouted at me. Ben, what's wrong with you? What did I tell you? Get up now. Only then did I realize how messed up I must have looked. I braced myself on the table and managed to stand, but it pulled on the bruises from last night, making me clench my fists in pain. Tina rushed over, reaching out to help me, but I turned away. Don't touch me, I said, full of disgust. Tina's face froze for a few seconds, then all color drained from her face. She frowned, turning to the manager who seemed to be enjoying the scene. You can leave now. When the door closed, I looked her over, really noticing how she was dressed today. After working in the industry for years, I could instantly tell her dress was made of expensive fabric with intricate beadwork. Even the small brooch she wore gleamed with diamonds that screamed luxury. I looked at Tina, feeling tears but tried to hold them back. Is playing with me fun for you? You rich folks get a kick out of dragging an innocent bystander down from the top to the bottom, making me give up everything I'd saved to pretend to pay your fake debts. Tina finally panicked. She reached out, like she wanted to pull me into a comforting hug as she did before. No, it's not like that. She was at a loss, unsure of how to respond. I'm right and she knows it. Every word I said was true. I took a few steps back, dodging her attempt to reach out. Tina, do you know who brought you those documents last night? It was me, the fool being played at your mercy. Before bringing them, I was even smug enough to tell you we'd have sweet and sour ribs for dinner. I glanced at that delicate brooch again, right on her chest. All I felt was irony. That $1,000 tip isn't enough for one of those tiny diamonds. Is it? I tried to steady my breathing, to fight the wave of feeling low. But deep down, I knew it was pointless. Mike clicked his tongue impatiently. All this drama? Just for money? Huh? Growing up in an orphanage like you, you'll always be clawing your way up from the bottom. He continued, his gaze sweeping over me with disdain. You finally climbed up, but your dreams got shattered so harshly. Of course, you're gonna try extorting something. Alright, weren't you adopted and then abandoned again? Heard it was because you stole money. Shut up. Before Mike finished, I swung a punch at his face. The closest ones know where it hurts most, how to hit where it stings deepest. The things he mentioned, I'd only ever confided in Tina. She knew it was my weak spot, yet decided to warp it when recounting to another. So furious, my fingers shook as I punched him, feeling numb and stinging pain in my fist. Tina was stunned, but quickly stepped in front to protect Mike. She screamed at me. What's wrong with you? Do you know what you're doing? Mike was beyond mad, grabbing anything he could find on the table to hurl at me. How dare you hit me? Even my parents never hit my face. Before Mike could do more, the VIP room door opened again. Linda strolled in, clapping with a playful tone. What a show. Didn't expect to catch a drama here. Linda's arrival swiftly ended the ridiculous quarrel. Tina eventually left with Mike. Before leaving, Mike spat out that he wouldn't let this go. I sat back on the couch, feeling ice cold throughout. She stood beside me, voice chilled. Cold? The dizziness getting worse? I nodded slightly. She chuckled softly, took out her phone, and called for emergency help. After hanging up the phone, she reached out and touched the wound on the back of my head. You know what? Your head's bleeding. It was only then that I started to feel a dull pain from where I had just bumped into the coffee table. I reached for the back of my neck and my hand came away covered in sticky, red blood. I closed my eyes and let out a deep sigh. Thanks. Her voice was calm and emotionless. I told you last night you don't need to thank me. That day was technically the second time I'd met Linda. The first time was the previous night when I got sideswiped by a car driven by some rich girls and fell on the roadside. After struggling to get my bike upright, I realized the front tire was punctured with several nails, and the headlight wouldn't even turn on. I thought about calling for help, but when I pulled out my phone, it was dead. The early autumn night was chilly, and I stood there in the cold wind for a long time, hoping in vain for a passerby to stop. I wondered what Tina was doing then, probably lost in the warmth of Mike's embrace, sipping expensive wine, thinking of new ways to deceive me. I looked up at the sky. It was pitch black and just as unclear as my future seemed. Just when I was about to lose hope, a bright light appeared behind me. Thrilled, I waved frantically towards the light. Linda pulled over, rolled down her window, and slightly turned her head. I could only see her indifferent side profile. Seeing that it was a fancy car, I almost regretted waving it down. The taunts and engine noise from those girls still haunted me. People say that when you're pushed to an edge, you're capable of anything. Maybe last night that was me. My hand, hidden in my sleeve, clenched nervously into a fist. Hi, could you please help me out? I had steeled myself for rejection. But to my surprise, Linda seemed more than willing to help. She got out of the car, inspected my rickety little electric bike, and shook her head with a frown. The parts on this thing are worn out. One fall could break everything. It's not worth repairing. Just get a new one. After thinking it over, I realized she was right. Helping me sort everything out took us much longer than expected. Watching my 3-year-old bike get towed away left me with mixed emotions. She brushed off dust from her hands. Let me drive you home. You're hurt. I'll take you to get some medicine. I nodded, thanks. She paused, then shook her head with a smile. No need to thank me. She murmured something else under her breath, but I couldn't catch it. On the road, she suddenly asked, "What's your name?" Ben. That night, she repeated my name a few times, then nodded. Yeah, Ben. It's a good name. The ambulance arrived quickly, almost quicker than I imagined. In the end, I had 5 stitches on my head and got a tetanus shot. While the anesthesia knocked me out, I dreamed of how I first met Tina. During college, I used to run errands for the wealthy students to make extra cash. If someone wanted beef from the south of the city, I'd rush through blistering heat just to bring it to them. Those students had money, tipping thousands on a whim. The highest tip I ever got was 50,000 yuan. That day, a storm had hit, thunder rumbling like an angry sky. Scared students huddled under their blankets. No one was willing to take on delivery jobs. Only I braved the bad weather to step outside. Lucky for me, Tina said she wasn't in a rush given the conditions. When I finally handed Tina the undamaged items I'd wrapped in countless waterproof bags, she gestured to the storm outside and spoke in shocked disbelief. You didn't even use an umbrella. I shook my head helplessly and showed her what I carried. With rain this heavy, an umbrella wouldn't make a difference. She didn't take what she wanted right away. Instead, she looked me over, sighed, and handed me tissues to wipe off the water from my face. Before I could react, she opened her black umbrella. Come on, I'll walk you back to your dorm. I was taken aback, awkwardly shaking my head. No need. I can wait till it eases up. You're soaked. If you don't hurry back and change, you might catch a cold or get a fever. And then someone else would snag your jobs. Think about that. Tina always knew what I worried about. Her words always seemed to slice right through to what was on my mind, like she could read my thoughts. As we reached the entrance of my dorm, she kept fussing over me, telling me to take a hot shower right away. When she turned to leave, I stopped her. So, reach out if you ever need anything. You're generous with the tips. But I didn't say the last part out loud. She nodded with a smile and disappeared into the heavy rain. Thunder rolled by and woke me up from the dream. It was a dream, bringing me back to the beginning of my disappointments. When I turned on my phone, my Instagram messages soared to 99 plus. I knew without looking who they were from. Opening my chats with Tina, her screen was filled with apologies. I'm sorry, but my feelings for you all these years were true. It's not like Mike said. Wait for me at home, and I'll explain everything. I went home, but I didn't see you. Where are you? I'm begging you. Can you just meet me once? Linda's not a good person. Don't listen to a word she says, and don't have any contact with her. I'm reading every message, trying to figure out what Tina really feels behind those simple words. Yet she's still lying. I type on the screen word by word. Is it because Linda won't go along with your schemes, so you all see her as different? I've heard Linda's name before from Tina. Back then, Tina hadn't yet pretended to be broke, but it marked the start of her messing with me. Linda was at her peak, and no one knew when she showed up. By the time everyone realized it, Linda's reach had already spread across various industries. When Tina came home, she always looked burdened and sometimes got drunk. While I was making her a hangover tea, I overheard her on the phone. She had it on speaker, and I heard someone on the other end sounding frustrated. Reliable news said Linda's cash flow is all from gambling on stones. The money comes back really slow. With such a weak background, we can take her down anytime. Tina seemed to agree. All right, let's discuss it at a meeting tomorrow. I've had too much to drink tonight, and my head hurts. After she hung up, I brought her the tea. She sighed, turned off her phone, and drank it all. I asked, puzzled. Why not become partners with Linda? What's wrong with a win-win situation? Tina seemed to be too drunk and said something harsh. Someone from her lowly background doesn't deserve to sit at the same table as us. Those words hit me right in the heart. The topic was as sensitive as a minefield, tearing apart everything I wanted to say. Silence filled the space for a while before Tina realized her mistake. She quickly explained, I didn't mean it. People say alcohol brings out the truth. I used to argue against these old sayings, never thinking some of those words might actually be true. Looking back, only fools in love believe in drunken nonsense. The phone ringing snapped me out of my thoughts. I saw it was Tina calling. Perfect, I had something to say too. Tina, tomorrow at 1:30 p.m., meet me at the apartment. We need to talk face to face. I hung up before she could speak. Gotta stand up for myself. At least I'll get back the money I've saved for years. Are you hungry? Want some snacks? Linda pushed open the hospital room door gently with some snacks in hand. I jumped at the sudden noise but relaxed a bit when I saw it was her. She offered me food but didn't eat any herself. Aren't you eating? She adjusted her glasses, her gaze landing on my wrist. She smirked slightly, then shook her head. I followed her eyes to the red string bracelet on my wrist. She pointed to it. That's an interesting bracelet. Who gave it to you? I've had it since I was little. She asked again. How much do you remember from childhood? I tilted my head, thinking seriously. Probably since I was adopted, around 8 years old. She nodded. Another silence stretched out. A while later, she broke it with a soft cough. She glanced at me, then quickly looked away. I need a marriage partner to help with my business. Are you willing? I choked on my drink. Cough. She rushed to pat my back. I grabbed a tissue, wiped my mouth, and asked incredulously, Are you serious? Her cheeks reddened. Her voice softened but firm. Of course, in business, once a promise is made, it's unbreakable. But I don't want to. Being hurt is too painful. I've known Tina for 6 years, dated for 3. Took her 2 years to win me over and we've dream after dream for me. But it was all just an illusion. And with Linda, I've known her for just a few days. Right now, I just want my money back. If I can also teach them a lesson, all the better. But how could I, with no power or influence, ever compete against Tina and the others? Mike's words may be blunt, but they're true. Someone like me, from the bottom rung of society, would have to save for a whole lifetime and probably still fall short of Mike's watch. Linda seemed to sense my hesitation. Her voice was calm and steady. I know what you're thinking. Ben, I can help you. I looked up, puzzled. She pulled out a thick stack of documents from behind her. These papers contain all the evidence of Mike's company's tax evasion. Fake contracts, hidden revenues, imaginary businesses, and manipulating payroll to employees. Linda kept talking, but from the moment she pulled out those papers, it was worth it, if only to get back at Mike. Linda started with nothing and made it to the top, offering me so much, just for marrying her. To refuse would make me seem petty. I placed my hand lightly on hers, stopping her from flipping through the documents, and said slowly, The 15th next month is a good day. Let's get married. Linda and I got the marriage license really fast. But as I held the certificate, I suddenly thought of how I used to urge Tina about marriage. She always had excuses, sometimes leading to fights over it. I thought maybe she wasn't ready or found the process tedious. Turns out her resistance was clear as day. But before the wedding, there's something I need to do. When Tina showed up, I was packing clothes. Of course, not mine, hers. This place is just over 500 square feet, but I bought it on an installment plan back in college. That's why I take jobs under the scorching sun or harsh storms. My rough childhood and brief warmth from a family have made me obsessed with having a complete home. I was thinking, if Tina refuses to leave, I might just throw all her stuff in the garbage downstairs. Those clothes wouldn't suit someone like her anyway. She grabbed my wrist, pleading, Please don't. I easily broke away, saying, You got here just in time. Take all this away, and pay me back my $45,320 while you're at it. I'm sure that much money isn't a big deal for her. Standing there with red eyes, she looked pitiful. Do you really have to be this harsh? Ben? No room for anything? Even now, she blamed me for not leaving room for her. I was so angry I was shaking. Tina, has a donkey kicked your brain? Didn't I give you a chance? That night, I asked if you had anything to say. Want me to remind you of your answer? She took a deep breath, as if making a last-ditch effort. If I told you nothing happened between me and Mike, would you believe me? I was so furious that I laughed and slapped her hard. Do you believe that when you say it? Are you telling me you two just blew up balloons all night? Tina, I was stupid to trust you, to share my heart with you knowing we're from different worlds. You knew how much my childhood hurt me, yet you told Mike everything and twisted the truth. Tina was speechless, opening her mouth but lacking the courage to even argue. She sat on the sofa, realizing she was at fault. Usually sharp-tongued, now she accepted my anger. She put a bank card on the coffee table. There's $1.5 million here. Consider the extra a compensation. The password is your birthday. I stuffed the card in my pocket and tossed all her things outside the door. I pointed outside, gathering courage to say, "Get out of here and stay as far away as possible." She paused at the doorway, holding onto the frame, unwilling to move. I heard Linda's investigating Mike's company and has some solid evidence. I've been to Linda's office multiple times, but her secretary said she wasn't there. Could you set up a meeting with her for me? That's when I realized her real reason for coming today. She once looked down on Linda, but for Mike, she'd swallow her pride. Scoffing, I said, "So that's why you're here? Why should I help Mike? Look at this bandage on my head. I haven't even had the stitches removed. I made a deal with Linda. As for the evidence, she left it all to me. I'll personally fax it to the tax office. I knew you were behind this." Suddenly, someone burst out, like a mad dog, tackling me down. My head hit the ground hard, a dizzying shock hitting me. He violently punched me again and again. I struggled to fight back, pain shooting through me with every hit. Tina was with Mike, trying to stop his madness but too afraid to anger him and get hit too. Mike had lost his mind, wanting so desperately to kill me to satisfy some twisted urge. Security from Linda's side eventually arrived, restraining Mike. Linda had always been calm and collected around me. I'd never seen her angry until she saw the scratches on my face, her expression dark and furious. Her eyes cut through. "Mike, I was going to give you a few more good days, but it seems you no longer need them." Finally, Mike understood the gravity of the situation. His legs gave way, sitting limply on the floor, bewildered. Linda took me back to the hospital. After they patched me up, she sat beside me, sighing deeply. Puzzled, I asked, "What's wrong?" She looked at me, shook her head with a reassuring smile. "Nothing. You should rest. I've got things to handle at the company." Before leaving, she hesitated before finally speaking. "Bella, you need to learn to protect yourself." I froze for a moment, even forgetting to breathe. Bella. How did she know my old name? I wanted to call out to her, but she was gone before I could. When I was 8, a not-so-wealthy couple adopted me. Before that, the orphanage director had warned them that I'd lost all my memories due to illness and might become slow. Still, they took me in. Back then, the director named me Bella, but they renamed me Ben after adopting me. Initially, they treated me well. Despite their limited resources, they'd save money to buy me nice clothes, tasty snacks, and the most popular toys. When I was in school, I was pretty hardworking and would get a little red flower from the teacher every day as a reward. Each day, when I got home, my foster mom would take the little red flower off my wrist and stick it onto a sheet of A4 paper. As time went on, one sheet after another got covered with these red flowers. My foster parents would look at the wall full of them, grinning from ear to ear. I thought I'd always be this happy until the year I was in 7th grade when they had their own child. That day, I was waiting for my foster dad to pick me up from school. Like always, I waited from the bustling crowd of school kids to when the place was deserted, from day to night, from being joyful to feeling worried. The familiar electric scooter never showed up. By the time I realized no one was coming to get me, it was 8:30 p.m. When I knocked on the front door at home, my foster mom answered with a hint of a smile still on her face. But the moment she saw me, that smile disappeared instantly. Late at night, when I was thirsty and got up to get some water, I overheard my foster parents talking. I crept to their bedroom door and overheard them arguing. My foster mom sounded annoyed. I used to think we'd never have our own kid, so we adopted him from the orphanage. Who knew this would happen now? My foster dad sounded helpless too. So what do we do now? Tell me. We've only got money for one. Providing for two is too much. The motherly woman I knew had changed. Let's just give him up. Give me up? For what reason? Say he's stealing, that his hands aren't clean. Where's that necklace you gave me? Look for it. Put it in his backpack along with some cash. I snuck back to bed. When they quietly opened my door, I opened my eyes in the dark. Through the faint moonlight, I watched them put the money and the gold necklace into my backpack. After that, being given up was inevitable. Back at the orphanage, even the director was ashamed of me. To this day, I remember the disappointment on his face. Orphan kids get rejected for character issues, but why would you steal? I told my old friends about it, but they didn't believe me. You're just making it up, right? The director said you're a thief, stealing money and a necklace, so that's why you got rejected. You're a bad kid. I don't want to play with you. If I had never experienced happiness, I'd think it was just fate and wouldn't chase after it. But I did have it once. I looked at the faint moonlight outside, just like the moment when my foster parents put the necklace and money in my backpack. I glanced at the copper coin on my wrist, and suddenly a memory popped up, something I had never remembered before. Linda's words echoed in my mind. Eric, you need to learn to protect yourself. Those words overlapped with the image of a bright young girl from a memory that finally became clear. I finally remembered a time I'd lost, when I was sick as a child. I had a persistent fever and was lying in the hospital. The director had brought Linda to visit me. Linda used to say this bracelet was her good luck charm and she could never take it off. Bad luck would follow if she did. I jokingly challenged her to take it off, to prove her wrong. But even so, she cried as she removed the copper coin bracelet from her wrist and put it on mine. You love this, don't you? I'm giving it to you now. Get better soon, Eric. You need to learn to protect yourself. She gave me her good luck charm. I nodded weakly but felt awful all over. She insisted on getting me medicine, but she never came back. After I got better, I lost all my previous memories because of the illness. I didn't remember Linda or where the copper bracelet came from. I only remembered lots of police officers coming to the orphanage, and some asked me when I last saw the little girl in the photo. I shook my head cluelessly. I don't know her. During that time, the director was always in tears. If I didn't break the rule and take her out, she wouldn't have been kidnapped. I didn't understand what he was saying at the time. I just knew he seemed really sad. But now I get it. I crouched down and buried my head in my arms, tears streaming uncontrollably. In that moment, I felt like fate was playing a cruel joke on me. I couldn't sleep a wink that night. I wanted to call Linda but was afraid to disturb her. When I closed my eyes, the memories just got clearer, digging deep into my bones. As soon as the first ray of sunlight hit the ground, I rushed out of the hospital. When I got to Linda's company, she was in the middle of a video conference. Seeing me there, she was surprised, spoke a few words I couldn't understand, and then paused the meeting. She was still the same, with a calm demeanor and a hidden smile at the corner of her eyes. She glanced at the clock on the wall. So early. Had breakfast yet? After my meeting, I'll take you downstairs for some food. Or if you're starving, I'll have my secretary bring something up. I interrupted her. Linda, I remember everything. Seeing her confused look, I pointed at the red string with the copper coins on my wrist. This. She paused, not long before tears started rolling down her cheeks. Even years after we got married, I never found the courage to ask her what she went through after being kidnapped. Seeing her success today, I can only guess with my imagination. I hoped she met a kind person who saved her. But if she had, they would have come looking for me. Took us so many years to reunite again. This fact alone shattered any beautiful assumptions I had before. My reluctance to speak up soon made her suspect something was on my mind. But Linda seemed to understand my thoughts and softly said, "You know, it's only after walking through swamps that you realize how good it is to be alive now, standing in the sunlight."